Hey, good morning. We are at the very bottom of 81B, and we're continuing to discuss the application of Osa via Spino, the prohibition against uh, slaughtering a mother and child on the same day. And we're at the Paras Chatos, third line from the bottom. So in the Mishnah we had the idea of if the shechita is not ru'uya, doesn't make the animal suitable for eating, then Rabbi Shimon says then that's not a problem of Osav Yespino. The paras chatas, and one of the examples in the Mishnah was a paraduma, right? Because paraduma is of course, it can't be eaten. It's got to be burned for its purpose, and can't get any other hana from it. Paras chatas shchita neruihi. But the more questions is the paraduma really called the shchita sheneruya, shchita that doesn't make it suitable for eating. Latanya, but we have a brisa. Rabbi Shimon Omer, para mitama tumas ochlin. The paraduma can become tame as something that's edible, right? So things that are edible have specific rules of how they can become tame and degrees of tuma, and the Rabbi Shimon here, paraduma qualifies as food. Why? You can't eat a paraduma, but kosher, because it had a time when it could have potentially been eaten. Rabbi Shimon Lakish, Rish Lakish explains, Omer Hay Rabbi Shimon, para niftes al gabe marachta. The paraduma, even once it's been designated, and even once you've put it on the wood pile to be burned, or to be slaughtered, I mean, it can still be redeemed, right? If you find a better one, let's say a larger one, or I don't know what, and you want to replace it, so it can have a replacement. It can be redeemed. So in that case, it becomes a not paraduma. So it's been designated as a paraduma, and it can still potentially become food, become regular food if it's redeemed. Amar Shaman Bar Abba Rabbi Yochanan, Paras Chatas Eina Mishnah. Indeed, this paraduma should not have been included in the Mishnah. It's not something that is Eina Ru'uya. It can indeed become roya for food.
And if it becomes invalidated in another way, let's say you're not supposed to put an ol on it, lo tasim ol on it. So if one does something to it, it works it or so forth, does it then become pasul as a paraduma, and then it can be eaten?
That's a good question. Like after you've designated it as a paraduma, then you use it improperly for work.
Right.
Good question. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it has to be redeemed officially because it's already been designated. Maybe
so.
not. Maybe it becomes automatically pasul, and then one can use it.
Yeah, maybe so. I don't know. Good question.
Well, and then secondly, what's the likelihood that, as you mentioned, they'll find another paraduma that's better than this? Weren't there only about 10 of them in all of history?
Yeah, it seems rather unlikely, but often the Gemara deals in theoretical constructs in order to test the limits of things and test the rules. Okay, next question. Eglar rufa lav shchitaruhi. The next thing in the Mishnah was an eglar rufa. So this is a calf whose neck is broken as an expiation for murder that was committed by some unknown person. So eglar rufa is asar bahana, but we have a Mishnah. Nimsa hahoreg ad shel egla. What if you designate the eglar rufa, you take it down to the wadi, and then before you have a chance to do the ceremony and break its neck, the murderer is caught. Okay, the police detectives do their work and they find the guy. So then there's no more eglar rufa, right? Because now you have a known assailant, a known murderer, and so there's no requirement for an eglar rufa. So what do? Teitze v'tira ba'eder. Then the eglar rufa is no longer an eglar rufa. It's treated like a regular animal. It can graze with the other animals. You don't have to worry about mixing it up because it's completely chullin, completely permitted for your use. So there is a point where an eglar rufa can be fit for eating. So why would you call it shlita she'eina ruya? Indeed, you should leave that out of the Mishnah as well. It's not an exemption from Osov Yespino. But did Rav Yanai really say this? From Rabbi Yanai also said, "Vul shamati ba v'shachachti." I heard that there's a dividing line between when the eglah rufa becomes forbidden and when it's like at what point does it become forbidden? But I forgot exactly what that point is. But Nasin Chavrai Lamar and my Charusas got together and they wanted to say, once you take it down to the wadi, then for the ceremony, that's when it becomes aser. If that's the case, so there's a very easy way to say how does an eglah rufa become normal again, and how is it? How does the shechita make it roy? Or when could it be roy? It could be an eglah rufa before it went down to the nachal. Why do you have to come up with a different answer? That you found the murderer. It's a much more likely scenario to say that every eglah rufa has a point at which it becomes now forbidden for eating, and that is when it goes down to the nachal. Or Pinchas Breder Rabbi Yami, or Pinchas answered, "Anon mishmei rishon ben lakish masnisala." We're learning this from Rabbi Reish Lakish. Eglah rufa in a Mishnah. So, in other words, it wasn't Rabbi Yanai who said leave this out of the Mishnah. It was Reish Lakish who would say leave it out of the Mishnah. Indeed, Rabbi Yanai has a different view.
So he brings it down there at that point. So before that, let's say he stops on the way. So then let's say he brings it down and they find the murderer. Mm-hmm. Or I can think of various scenarios there. Or let's say you bring it down and it escapes, it runs away, and then you catch it again. Mm-hmm. So,
what we're saying is that every eglah rufa has a point at which it's roy before it goes down to the nachal, right? So, what are you coming up with a weird case like your case would be it ran away or you found the murderer? You don't have to find a weird case. Every eglah rufa has a point at which it could have been eaten, could have done shchita and made it roy, and that is before it goes down to the nachal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Amar Vashi, Kiavina be Rav Papi Kashalan. When we were with Rav Papi, we asked the following: Mi Amar Rav Shimon ben Lakish Hachi. The Rav Shimon really say, "V'ha'itmar tzipore mitzora me'emasai nasari." When do the birds of a mitzora become aser bana? Because they're becoming, a chatos, right? One becomes a chatos and the other is set free. Rabbi Yochanan says from the time that the one bird is slaughtered. From the time that you designate them, from the time that you take them for this purpose. And we said, my Talmud Rosh Lakish, what's Rosh Lakish's reason? Gamar kicha me eglah rufa. He learns it from eglah rufa. Just like an eglah rufa becomes aser bana while it's alive, right? When it goes down into the valley, so too the mitzora as birds becomes aser when it's still alive. That is when you designate it. Okay, so if that's the case, so Reish Lakish, it looks like there is a point. He agrees with this idea that the eglah rufa has a point before it becomes aser bana. So how can you say Reish Lakish says that it's Reish Lakish who says that it shouldn't be in the Mishnah? It should be in the Mishnah because you have a point where an eglah rufa can have shchita. That's right. Rav Chia answers eglah rufa in the Mishnah. So it's Rav Chia who says that the eglah rufa should not be in the Mishnah because it indeed can be subject to osov yespino. Okay.
It should not be in the Mishnah. Wait a second. It should be in the Mishnah.
It should not be in the Mishnah because the Mishnah is enumerating things that never can become properly shchita for food, right?
Well, Reish Lakish agrees with that. He has a point.
There is a point where the eglah rufa can become good for food, right, before going down to the nachal. But Rav Chia disagrees. Rav Chia is the one who would say, take it out of the Mishnah because, indeed, it can... because the Mishnah is discussing what? Now I've got myself confused. The Mishnah is saying the eglah rufa is not subject to osov yespino because it can never be eaten. But according to Reish Lakish and according to Rabbi Yanai, there is it. One second, I'm getting it backwards. All right, hold on a second.
Now, so I was getting confused a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, 1 second. Let's go back to the Mishnah.
Say it cannot be. It should take it out because there's no otov et beno, right? That should be removed from the Mishnah. That was their taina, right?
Yeah.
Because that would.
Yeah, the Mishnah said that if you do shchita on an eglah rufa, Rabbi Shimon says you're off the hook, and the Chachamim say you're on, that it's forbidden, right? So really, what we want to say now is that according to Reish Lakish, this shouldn't be in the Mishnah because he agrees with the Chachamim that you would be chayav, because there is a time when Nagla Rufa can be subject to the Osa V'Espina. Right. So what we're saying is what should be in the Mishnah, only things on which there is a dispute, where Reish Lakish says Potter and the Chachamim say chayav. But really, when it comes to Egla Rufa, and like we said before, what was the other one? Paraduma. Rabbi Shimon would agree that there is no shasa kosher, and he would agree that there is shasa kosher, and he would agree that there is that it is subject to also the espina.
So then it should be in the Mishnah then, according to Shimon ben Lakish.
No, it shouldn't be in the Mishnah, because in the Mishnah, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says Potter. But what we decided that according to Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, he would agree with Chachamim that you are chayav for Osav Yesbeno, for Paraduma, and for Egler Rufa. Why? Because there is a time where you could do the shchita, and it would be roy. It would be shchita roy. It would be, you could eat it right before it goes down to the Nachalisan. So the Rav Shimon ben Lakish will actually agree with the Rabbanan that you're chayav, and he would not say, like he does in the Mishnah, that you're pater.
And Rav Chia,
Rav Chia disagrees.
Disagrees.
Yeah.
And Rav Yanai agrees with
Rav Yanai agrees with Reish Lakish.
Okay.
Next Mishnah. Shnaim shalachel paru b'na. What if you have two people? You have a guy selling cattle, and he sells a mother to one guy, to Reuven, and the child to Shima, right? But there's still an issue also the espino. So, like, which one? They can't both slaughter it on the same day, okay? But each one wants to slaughter it today. So what do? Whoever made the first purchase, he has the right to do the shechita that day, and the other guy has to wait till tomorrow. But what if the second guy went ahead and improperly slaughtered his? Then he wins. Like then he gets. We don't penalize him or anything. He is the one who slaughtered first. He gets to eat it, and the other guy, who should have been first, has to wait till tomorrow. So
this presumes everybody knows everybody. If a guy takes it away and travels to California with his bowl, you don't know what he did with it.
I had a feeling you were going to point that out. Yeah, you're correct. We're talking about, like, if you have a court case, right? In other words, it's not that it's usher for the second guy to do it, right? As the Mishnah said, kol hakodim zacha, right? Whoever does it first, he wins. But what the Mishnah is telling you is, if one takes the other to court and say, "Hey, you can't slaughter yours today because I bought it first," then the judges will rule in his favor. But it's not like it's usher for the other guy to do it in the first place. Tana, we have a brisa. Im kadam hasheni harezeh zariz v'niskar. Similarly, this brisa says if the second purchaser, went ahead and slaughtered it, then he is considered zariz. He's the quick one, v'niskar, and he profits by getting to do what he wanted to do the slaughtering today and to have a steak dinner. And what does this mean? Zariz love and isura. He's called zariz because he went ahead and did something, and it's not usher. V'niskar dekacha bisra, and he profits because he can eat his steak dinner that way. Next Mishnah, shachat par v'achar kach shnei baneh. What if you have a mother with two children, right? So if you do the mother first, you do the shchita, and then you do the two children. So sofek shmonim, you're chayav twice, right? You get 40 makos twice, because each child is subject to osov yesbenah. Shachat shnei baneh v'achar kach shchata. What if you first do the two children? So there's no Easter there, right? You have a brother and sister, you do the shchita. And then you do the mother, right? So then, how many times are you chayav? Sofik is arbaim. Then you're only chayav once. Shchata v'yas bita v'yas bas bita. What if you do the shchita of a mother, a daughter, and a granddaughter, right? So sofik shmonim. Then you're chayav twice because the mother is the daughter of the first one. Sorry,
mother's the daughter.
I'm sorry. The daughter is the daughter of the mother, and the granddaughter is the daughter of the daughter. Right.
Right.
So okay. What if you do the mother and the granddaughter? There's no Easter there, right? Because it's only osovias beno, not osovias ben beno, right? So you do the mother, and you skip the daughter, and you do the granddaughter. No Easter yet, and then you do the middle one. So then sofik is arbaim. Again, you're only chayav once, because it's like one animal. But Silchos over Mishum Rabbi Meir sofik shmonim. Silchos says no. You're with this one act, you can violate the two prohibitions or the two scenarios, right? One because it's the daughter of the one that you already shechted, and the other because it's the mother of the one that you already shechted. So first of all, Samai Osovias Beno Rahmana V'lo Beno V'oso. The Torah says it sounds like the Gemara is proposing maybe the prohibition is strictly in order. Oso v'yas beno. Don't do it in this order. So Gemara says lo sachadato. That doesn't really make sense. The Tanya with Brisa oso v'yas beno ein li oso v'yas beno. Oso v'yas imo minayin. So the Brisa asks exactly this question. It only says Osovias Beno, it, and then it's child. How do you know that that it's still us to do the child and then the mother? Because he uses the plural. You should not slaughter in plural. So there's two harikan. There's two slaughtering people here. Okay, so how does this work? Echad hashochet is apar, v'echad hashochet is ima, v'echad hashochet is bena. Shnayim ha'achronim chayavim. If we have one person who does the mother, and then one does the child, and then another one does the sorry. So you have if you do the middle one, whatever. If one person does the middle one person does the mother of that one, and one person does the daughter of that one. Shnayim ha'achronim chayavim. Those last two are chayav. So clearly, if you do the mother, the child, and then the mother, you're also chayav according to this brisa. The Gemara says, well, wait a minute, you want to use.
Well, why won't you learn it lo tishchatu? That you could the plural refers to the animals.
Yeah, okay, the Gemara is gonna go through that. Yeah.
Oh.
So the lo tishchatu, first of all, the Gemara says like you have to have that word because it has to tell you, the basic Isur, right? So like don't tell me you could leave out that word. So Gemara says, no, you can't lichtov lo tishchot. It's the plural that we're focusing on, right? It could have said lo tishchat biyom echad, right? So it says lo tishchatu. It's referring to these two people who are chayav in the scenario we just mentioned. My lo tishchatu. Yeah, so that's what we learned from the plural. But the Gemara says, wait a minute, we still need to have a plural. Because lo tishchot avmin echad in trei lo. If the Torah says lo tishchat biyom echad, then I would have thought, okay, so if one person slaughters both the mother and the child, that's the Isur. But maybe if one person does the mother and the other person does the child, maybe that's not a problem. So that's why you can't write it in the singular. That's why you have to say lo tishchatu afilu trei. So then, how can you also learn what we're trying to learn from lo tishchatu? That you can go out of order. So where it says in Cain lichtov lo yishachetu, because you're focusing on the if you're focusing on you could have focused on the animals themselves. Like you cannot have them slaughtered, right? Regardless if it's one person or two person. But I still wouldn't know that if you do it out of order, it's still a problem. So then my lo tishchatu shmami no tarte. So since it says lo tishchatu, so that indicates also that not only is it a problem for the animals themselves to be slaughtered by even by more than one person, but also it's if you're doing it that
one
both
person.
yeah that both in the scenario of the middle one first, and then another person does the child, and another person does the mother of that middle one, that both are chayav, and that's how you know that doing it out of order, out of the oso v'espino order, but beno v'oso is still a problem. Okay,
but are we learning here at all the plural refers to two separate animals, the mother and the daughter, or the mother and the son and the mother, as opposed to thinking that it's
oso v'espino. That's a given, because how can you the oso v'espino indicates two animals, the mother and the child. But you could still say lo tishchat, right? You, a single person,
right.
shouldn't do right. So it says lo. So it puts it in plural, but still it could have said lo yishachetu, right? That it could be plural, even by more than one person.
No, I think you're adding an extra letter there. It's the words. I see the letters as lo yishchatu. I don't see lo yishchateu. I don't see an extra.
Well, that's how you have to read it. Yeah, I mean, there's no dots in the Gemara, right? But
no, but you're adding another letter. Lo yishchatehu. There would be there would be an extra hey. Lo yishchatehu tet hey vav.
Well, that's not one of the things proposed by the Gemara. The Gemara is proposing it could have said lo yishachetu.
Lo yishchatei, but then you'd have another letter. If you say lo yishchatehu,
no, you're doing a different word. Lo yishchatehu means you should not shecht it, but lo yishachetu is the passive voice. Right? Yishachetu.
Oh, you're reading.
They should not be slaughtered.
Yishchatei.
No. Yishachetu. They should not be slaughtered.
Yishchachetu. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yishachetu.
So the Mishnah said if you do first the mother and the granddaughter, and then the middle one, then the daughter, you only get. So the Mishnah had machlokas. The Tanna Kama says you're only chayav once, and Simcha says in the name of Rav Meir twice. Only by Rav Yosef. My Talmud is Simchos. What's the reason for saying twice? Because Simchos holds that if you eat two, you're eating chaylev b'shogeg, and you eat two measures, like two kazesim, you're chayav twice, even though you're only doing kind of one act of eating. So in other words, if you do two simultaneous violations, you're chayav twice. So the same would apply to this case of doing the middle one. You're over two isurim with one act. Really, the Mishnah could have said a general rule about what Simchos holds. Why is it telling us specifically about this Osav Yespino weird case? To tell you the rabbis that even by focusing on this Osav Yespino case, even even though you could say that the multiple isurim come from two different bodies, right? So like two different cows. They still say it's still just one malchus violation.
Well, why is that? Why do they say
why is that?
So he holds that there are two. Simchos holds there are two violations, but the difference is in eating the chaylev, he's eating two portions at once. They're not shechting unless he is just shechting with two hands, the right hand, the left hand. which you're supposed to shech with the right. But at the same time, then it's not really comparable, right?
Yeah. Okay.
How is he shechting both of them the same time? He's not. He's shechting one, and then at 10 minutes later, he shechs the other one, but they're not simultaneous. Whereas he can eat the two pieces of chaylev, put them in his mouth at the same time. Right?
No, but in the case of the Mishnah, it's when you've already done the mother and the granddaughter, and now you're doing the daughter. That's only one act, right? The mother and the granddaughter you were fine because there's no osav no problem.
Right.
But the mother, the one in the middle, sorry, the daughter, the one in the middle, then with one act you're violating two instances of osav no, because this one is both the daughter and the mother.
Right. Okay. All right.
Okay. So now maybe Simchus really holds that even if you eat two kazesim of chaylev, you're still chayiv only once. But in the case of the osav yisbeno, hainutama, why are you chayiv twice? Because it's two separate. There's two separate bodies involved. There's the mother and the granddaughter. So he said, Rav Yosef answers yes. Really, he holds your chayiv twice. Mimai, how do I know? Tanya, because we have another brisa. What if you plant kilayim twice? Like in this, you plant one plant improperly and then you do another one in the same session, right? In other words, you're doing it, assuming, let's say it's b'shogeg, you didn't realize, and you plant two plants, so you chayiv twice. My loka. What does it mean? You get malchus? Ilay malokach achas. I'm sorry, it didn't say twice. Sorry. Reading the brisa again. Kilayim loka. If you do two instances of planting kilayim, you get malchus. My loka. What does it mean you get malchus? Ilay malokach achas. If you want to say it means you get malchus once, pshita. Of course you do, right? Because you did it twice, you shouldn't get malchus. Of course you get malchus. It's obvious you get it once. So So what's it even telling you? V'yod my kilayim. What does it mean to say kilayim twice? Like you get malchus even if you only do it once, right? Ella pshita. So obviously, what it's telling us, shtei malchias. When it says hazareya kilayim loka, it means you get malchus twice. Now, what's the case? If you want to say it's two separate actions with two separate warnings, I go out in the morning and I plant kilayim. Somebody warns me, don't plant kilayim, and I do it. And then I take a drink of water, and then somebody says to me, don't plant it again. Don't keep not planting, and I do it again. So then obviously that's two separate violations. Tanina, we have a Mishnah, a Brisa, a Mishnah. Nazir shayashosel yain kol yom. You have a Nazir drinking wine all day long, but you only were warned once in the morning, don't drink wine, and then you start drinking wine and you drink all day long. And chayv alachas, you only chayv once. Amrlo al tishavu shosa. But if you keep getting warned, you have your morning, you have your glass of wine in the morning. Somebody tells you, don't drink that wine, you're a Nazir, and you drink it anyway. And then, afterwards they say you don't drink any more wine, and you drink it anyway. Then chayv kalachas v'yachas. Then you're chayv for each instance. So coming back to our kilayim case, why would you get malchus twice? So a brisa must be referring to doing two plantings of kilayim at the same time with only one warning, right? So money. And who is this like? If you want to say it's the rabbis who argue on simchos in our Mishnah, if the rabbis say in our Mishnah, in the Osav Yosmino case, that you're pater, even though there's two different bodies, right? It belongs to two different sets. Certainly in the case of kilayim, they would say pater. He must be sumchos. So our answer is no. Really, it's the rabbis. What's the brisa telling us? It's telling us a side point. The ika trei gavne kilayim, that there's two types of kilayim that you can be chayav for, right? You can be a chayav for if you plant wheat in a vineyard and barley in a vineyard, right? So that's how you can get malchus twice. If your second violation is a different kind of category of kilayim.
But does that apply here? There's not a second different type of violation. It's still otoba et bano. right? Whether it's the mother, the grandmother, the daughter, it's still the same type of violation.
Right. But what the Mishnah about Kilayim is adding on is to tell us that, you know what, even if it's two categories of Kilayim, you could violate twice because there could be two categories of Kilayim. For each one, you get Malchus Ulapukim and Rabbi Yosha, not like Rabbi Yoshaya. Rabbi Yoshia, Rabbi Yoshia says that, you know, when you're over Kilayim, you actually have to do you have to have all three varieties. You have to plant all three varieties, chita, saora, and grapes at the same time, right? He would say that if you have an existing grape yard and you plant wheat, that's actually not a kilayim violation. So Kamash Malan, so to exclude that opinion of Rabbi Yoshia, the chizara, chita, v'chartzan, the sara v'chartzan, nami mechayev. If you plant wheat and grapes or barley and grapes together, you're also liable for malchus for kilayim keren.
Twice.
Right.
It would be twice. So if there's a field or it's a vineyard of grapes, it's growing there, and one, according to him, and one decides to plant wheat there, it's no kalayim.
Right.
I remember learning that in the Mishnah.
Yeah. This is a bit of a strange view. Right? Okay. So we're still trying to deal with sumchos, and we want to show that sumchos, if you do multiple isurim of any kind of isur, then you get a malchus for each one. Tashma. Let's see if we can prove that from here. Now here, this Mishnah is talking about gid hanasha, and an animal has two hind legs, right? And each one has the sciatic nerve, the gid hanasha, right? So if you eat a kazayas of the right side gid hanasha and the left side gid hanasha, sofik shmonim, that's two violations. Rabbi Yehuda says, only one violation. So what kind of case is this? If you want to say that two separate incidents, somebody warned you, don't eat the right leg gid hanasha, and you ate it. And then somebody warns you, don't eat the left leg gid hanasha, and you ate it. Then obviously, that's two violations. My Talmud Rabbi Yehuda. If that's what we're talking about, then why would Rabbi Yehuda says only one violation? Then hasras safeki. So actually, what the Gemara is asking is, why would you eat? So here the Gemara is making an assumption here that only one of the right side or the left side is asur, but we're not sure which one. So then then it would be hasra safek.
Well, where's the safek? If he tells him don't eat it, if there are witnesses that say don't eat it, where's the safek?
Because what the Gemara is going to next week going to come to this, but so I'll just give you a preview. According to Rabbi Yehuda, we're unsure. There's only one side is asur for gid hanasha, only either the left side or the right side, but we're unsure which one it is. We don't know which is the isur, right? So how could you violate it if you have a stew with both gid hanasha from both the right side and the left side? Then you're definitely doing something wrong here, right? But if you're eating them separately, like when I'm eating the right side, I'm not sure. Is this asur? Maybe it's the left side that's asur. When I'm eating the left side, I'm also not sure. Maybe it's the right side that's asur. We just don't know. So that would be hasra safek, and so then you wouldn't be liable for malchus at all, because as we've seen already a few times, hasra safek is not. If it's only a doubtful hasra, like you might be violating something if you do that, then you don't get malchus for that. So why would Rabbi Yehuda say you get even one set of malchus? Is
that the din that only one gid hanasha is asur?
That's one view.
And that we just don't know which one it is in general?
Yeah, it's a little weird, right?
I mean, there are two of them. There's the left and the right side.
Right. Yeah. So I guess the only way you could actually be over would be, for certain, if you ate them both at the same time. Like I said, if you have a stew, a gid hanasha stew made up of right side and left side gid hanasha, then definitely you can't eat that. But yeah, it's a little bit of a weird view, and I don't know. I can't imagine that we actually pass on like that, but I don't know. Yeah, Vishamin Rabbi Yehuda, Damar Esra Safik, Lo Shemay Esra. And Rabbi Yehuda, we know that he holds that if you have an uncertain warning, then that's not a valid warning, and you don't get malchus. So why would Rabbi Yehuda say that you are
Chayiv twice.
that you're chayiv even once? Right? Rabbi Yehuda is the one that says you're only chayiv once.
Oh.
You shouldn't be chayiv once because that's Esra Safik.
Right.
And how do I know that Rabbi Yehuda holds this about Hasra Safek? The Tanya, we have a brisa. Hikaz zeh v'chazer v'hikaz zeh. If you have you have two, you don't know who your father is. Your mother slept with these two men. One of them is your father, but you don't know which is which. So, and you have a prohibition against striking your father. So, if you strike one and then the other one, or kila elazeh v'chazer v'kila elazeh, or you curse one and then you curse the other one, oh shika shneim v'asachas, or you hit them both simultaneously. Oh shakil shneim v'asachas, or you curse them both simultaneously. Chayev, you get the death penalty. Rabbi Yehuda Omer b'vasachas chayev. If you do it together in one act, then you're chayiv, because you could be. Oh, we'll see why in a second, but we're going to say it's because you could be warned. Don't do that. Don't hit both these men at the same time, because one of them is your father, right? But but if you hit one and then the other one, then potter. You'd be potter according to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says you're potter. So why? Because hasra safek. Because when you hit the first guy, you're not sure if it's your father. When you hit the second guy, you're not sure if it's your father. So the hasra can only be hasra safek. So Rabbi Yehuda says pater. Okay, so we put that to bed. So now we're still left with the question that since Rabbi Yehuda holds the hasra safek it doesn't make you liable. Then our Mishnah can't, and Rabbi Yehuda says in our Mishnah, you do get malchus, so we can't be talking about eating one after the other, right? Because that's hasra safek. So what is Rabbi Yehuda talking about? What is the case where Rabbi Yehuda says you're chayav once? You're eating both the right and gid hanasha, the right and left side gid hanasha at the same time, like I said, like a stew. Uman Tanakama. Okay, so what does the Tanakama hold? That you're chayav twice. But who is that? If you want to say it's the Rabbanan, the rabbis who say in our Mishnah that if there's two separate bodies involved, in the case of Osav Yasmano, they still say Pater Hachalakal Shekain. Here, we're not talking about two separate bodies. They're both Gid Hanasha. I'm not sure exactly why these would not necessarily be two separate bodies, but okay, let's leave that aside. And Elulav Simple.
But it's the same animal, right?
Yeah, but it could be two different animals also, right from one and left from the other. But put that aside, I'm not sure why the Gemara says is so certain that this is not Gufim Muchlakim. But Elulav Sumchos. But what about Sumchos? So it must be. But if you take that, if you accept that, then you would say that the Tanakama must be Sumchos, and Sumchos then holds that if you that even that you're liable for each violation, even if it's not Gufin Muchlakin. More answers low.
What did it say? What is it that again? It's you're chayiv each one by one, even if the same animal, same.
Yeah, regardless of whether they're separate bodies or not, even if it's not separate bodies, but even if it's one body, we're still chayiv more than once. Of course, low.
So that's the case of this. He's saying then this animal, which is the daughter of one and mother of the other, they would be chayiv twice. Chayiv on twice, 80 lashes, right?
Right. Where says Leolam Bazachar Zevraban. Our Mishnah is actually talking. The Mishnah about the Gid Hanasha is talking about you ate one and then the other, and it's according to the Rabbanan. I Tana Savrala Ki Idach Tana Rabbi Yehuda, and this Tana holds as follows. another position of Rabbi Yehuda, Diamar Hasra Safek Shema Hasra, that there's another view that Rabbi Yehuda holds that Hasra Safek is okay. So even if you were given this Hasra Safek, you're still chayav, and that's why Rabbi Yehuda says in our Mishnah, you're chayav once. The Tanya, what is this other opinion of Rabbi Yehuda? Lo susir mimenu ad boker, talking about the Korban Pesach, you can't leave any till morning. Anything that's left over, you have to burn. So why does it say, don't eat it, don't leave it over, and if you leave it over, burn it. So it's an asay achar lo taseh, right? That don't do this, right? Don't leave it over. But if you did, here's another mitzvah: burn it. Lomer shein lokin alav, and that tells you that there's no malchus for this, right? Say achar lo taseh, you don't get malchus for the lo taseh. That's what Rabbi Yehuda says. Rabbi Yaakov Omer lo min Hashem uzeh. That's not the reason. El mishum dahavale lav shein bo maseh. No, the reason that you don't get malchus for leaving over the Korban Pesach is it's lav shein bo maseh. It's a passive violation, right? Not eating something, like if you don't finish it, you can't get malchus for something that is a passive violation. Not because, not because say achar lo taseh v'chol lav shein b'maseh ein lokin alav.
But he's saying that the pasuk is lo totiru mimenu ad boker, so he's right. Not doing it. So he wouldn't Mamela, he wouldn't get malchut if he didn't do it. The halak, the command is not to do it. So how's there a lav shein b'maseh? He didn't do anything.
Exactly. That's the definition of lav shein b'maseh. By not finishing your steak, right? That is the lav. The Torah says, don't leave any leftovers. You left leftovers, but you're not actively leaving the leftover. You're neglecting to eat it. It's a passive violation, right?
So he should have eaten it and he didn't.
Right.
So that's the lav.
Exactly.
But there was no the ma'aser was that he didn't do it. He didn't actually physically do something.
It's a lack of a ma'aseh. It's a lack of an action.
Right, lack of an action.
Not eating your dinner, not finishing your dinner. Right. But what does this have to do with what we're trying to say about Rabbi Yehuda? Because what kind of hasra can you get? Right. I can tell you at 10 o'clock, make sure you finish your dinner because you're not allowed to leave over. And you go, fine, I will. At 11 o'clock, I can tell you, make sure you finish your dinner. You say, fine, I will. But you're like, the warner doesn't know if the guy's going to actually finish his dinner, right? It might not be there's an uncertainty built in to the warning.
So that's a safek hatra.
It's 10 o'clock, and I say, finish your dinner, or else you're going to be over. And I say, don't worry, I'm going to take a nap first, and then I'm going to eat it before midnight, right? So that's not a good hasra. That's a safek hasra safek, because I don't know, maybe you will eat it, right? So if you don't eat it at this moment, that's not a problem, right? I guess you could say to me at 11:59, there's no more time left. But I don't know. That seems to me like a valid objection. But as long as there's still time left, like once you reach midnight, it's too late. You can't warn them anymore because the lav has already been done.
Well, I think there's a distinction here. It may be subtle, but he's giving a warning. He says, finish your dinner. Yeah. He says, okay. So ultimately doesn't finish it, but the obligation to finish the dinner is on the person who's supposed to eat it. Whereas in the other case of the Gita Nasha, that we don't know which one is actually asur. So he's not the person who's making the warning, he's warning on something that he knows should be asur, not to eat the Gita Nasha, but it's not that falls on the person who's making that Torah as opposed to the person who should have eaten it because he doesn't. It's the subject is even before the action of the person who shouldn't be eating it.
Yeah. So you're saying there's two different kinds of suffix here,
right?
A valid question. The Gemara doesn't really consider that problem, but I think it is a good postulate. Okay. All right, we'll leave it here. They will pick up tomorrow.
Where we stop at just before Tashma? Is that
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. Okay. Have a good day.